Commander Vex 90 had endured enough campaigns to recognize the subtle tremors that preceded disaster. The tension in the air was unmistakable. Junior officers fidgeted at their consoles, Lieutenant Krill kept patting the sidearm holstered at his hip, and most unsettling of all, the human seated serenely at the center of the tactical training chamber. "All right, cadets," Vex 90 announced, his 4 eyes sweeping across the assembled recruit. The chamber hummed with restrained anticipation, filled with species from across the Federation. Today's lesson is Advanced Weapon Improvisation Under Pressure. Our subject will receive only standard classroom furnishings and exactly 10 minutes to create a functional weapon. A ripple of reaction passed through the audience. The Zephyrian contingent clicked their mandibles in a chorus of excitement. The Korvaxi delegation rustled their dark plumage uneasily. Even the normally impassive Threnody observers leaned forward, crystalline skulls glinting as they turned toward the human. Marcus Kane, Earth's first exchange candidate at the Academy, merely flexed his fingers, like a pianist limbering up before a concerto. 10 minutes feels generous, Cadet Yix muttered from the back, his voice tinged with derision. What kind of weapon could anyone assemble out of desks and chairs? Vex 90's mandibles twitched in what, for his species, might have been mistaken for a smile. That, Cadet Yix, is precisely what we intend to discover. Begin when ready, Human Kane. Marcus rose deliberately, his movements measured and unhurried. He circled the room once, eyes scanning with the casual appraisal of a craftsman wandering through a well-stocked workshop. The cadets tracked his every step as he trailed his hands across desk edges, flexed chair joints, and knocked experimentally against the synthetic wood panels. Interesting, he remarked aloud, his voice carrying with deliberate clarity. Reinforced polymer composite. Military-grade standard. Remarkably sturdy for school furniture. Lieutenant Krill bent toward his commander. Sir, should we be alarmed that he's analyzing the structural integrity of our equipment? Only, Vex 90 replied dryly, if he decides it's inadequate. By then Marcus had reached one of the instructor's desks, larger and sturdier than the cadets' models. Without hesitation, he seized an edge and snapped a leg clean off with a sharp downward motion. The crack reverberated through the chamber like a gunshot. Void preserve us, squealed Cadet Fen, her tentacles curling tight in alarm. Did he just destroy Academy property? With his bare hands, Yix added, his skepticism collapsing into unease. Marcus didn't pause. He repeated the motion, tearing loose a second leg before prying at the metal brackets that anchored them. His efficiency was unsettling, as though he'd dismantled hundreds of desks in another life. 7 minutes, Vex 90 called, though his own tone had grown uncharacteristically taut. Marcus flicked his gaze at the timer and shrugged. Plenty. Next, he approached one of the cadet chairs. Sleek, ergonomic, its design optimized for comfort across species. Instead of brute force, he began taking it apart with surgical precision. His fingertips located subtle release catches that even the designer's own technicians would have struggled to find. How does he know where those joints are? Whispered Cadet Threx, voice hushed with awe. Humans possess an unnerving affinity for mechanical systems, answered Professor Quinn from the observation deck above. They comprehend design intent almost instinctively. Piece by piece, Marcus stripped the chair down to its skeleton. Beneath the seat's padding he unearthed what he sought, a lattice of thin, resilient metal bands engineered to support a wide range of anatomies. Brilliant, he muttered under his breath, yet the chamber's audio sensors amplified every syllable. Someone actually put thought into this construction. Vex 90 realized he was leaning forward, caught despite himself. Decades of service had never shown him a cadet, let alone a human, approach an exercise with such unnerving confidence. Marcus now returned to the 2 desk legs. With the brackets as makeshift tools, he peeled away the outer polymer sheathing, exposing the inner core, a resilient composite rod. Exactly as he had anticipated. 5 minutes, Vex 90 reminded. Perfect, Marcus murmured. Without looking up, he bent the first core into a slight arc, coaxing it into the unmistakable curve of a bow stave. The second rod he shaped into crude but serviceable shaft. This is impossible, Yix declared, mandibles clattering in agitation. One cannot fashion a bow from classroom scrap. Marcus froze mid-motion and fixed his gaze on the Zephyrian cadet. Want to wager on that? The room hushed. Even Vex 90 felt his respiratory rhythm falter. I beg your pardon? Yix said, flustered. You claimed it couldn't be done. I claim it can. Shall we stake something on the outcome? Yix's mandibles clicked a rapid staccato, unequivocal agitation for his species. And what would this wager entail, human? Marcus' grin spread slowly, sharp enough that several cadets involuntarily recoiled. The Academy had warned them that human expressions could be disturbingly primal. If I succeed in producing a functional bow from these scraps, you'll cover my officers' club tab for the next month. Should I fail, I'll complete your tactical analysis reports for the entire semester. That is unexpectedly generous, Yix said cautiously. Is it? Marcus replied, already back at work. Depends entirely on perspective. From the salvaged strips of the chair, he was now weaving together a bowstring, his hands moving with fluid certainty. The pattern was complex, a braid strong enough to hold tension yet supple enough to flex. Around the room, several engineering cadets had begun scribbling frantic note. 3 minutes, Commander Vex 90 announced. Marcus's pace did not quicken, but his focus sharpened. Each movement was deliberate, his hands making subtle adjustments to the curve of the bow stave, testing its resilience, ensuring every joint and attachment was secure. Remarkable, Professor Quinn's voice carried from the observation deck. The human is applying principles of energy storage and mechanical leverage, techniques typically reserved for advanced weapon systems. From furniture, Lieutenant Krill added, still sounding as if he hardly believed the words leaving his mouth. Exactly, Quinn replied. That is what makes this so extraordinary. By now, Marcus had finished braiding the bowstring and turned to the crude arrows. The process lacked the elegance of his earlier work. There was scraping, chipping, shaping with jagged edges of metal brackets, but the results were beginning to take the form of weapons with unsettling authenticity. 2 minutes, Vex 90 called. Nearly done, Marcus answered cheerfully, as though assembling deadly implements from desks and chairs was little more than a pleasant distraction. He tore strips of fabric from the cushion material, fastening them as makeshift fletching. The arrowheads, sharpened from composite splinters, gleamed faintly under the overhead lights, primitive but sharp enough to draw blood. The silence in the room was thick with unease. Several cadets shifted back from the edge of the demonstration zone. 1 minute, came the next call. Marcus rose to his full height, bow in one hand, arrows in the other. The finished weapon was rough, yes, but undeniably lethal. It no longer looked like furniture. It looked like history repeating itself. Time, Commander Vex 90 declared. The chamber stilled. No one spoke as Marcus drew a breath, notched an arrow, and pulled the string back. The bow bent with a smooth grace, no wobble, no sign of weakness. Target? Marcus asked casually. Vex 90 gestured toward the far end of the hall, where a training dummy stood 50 meters away. That will do. Marcus nodded once, adjusted his footing, and loosed the arrow. It streaked across the chamber, a blur of motion, and buried itself dead center in the dummy's chest. The shaft drove straight through, piercing combat-grade armor plating before embedding deep into the wall behind. No one moved. A second arrow followed, swift and unhesitating. This one landed slightly left of the first, still well within marksman's accuracy. The third arrow split the difference, grouping cleanly with the others. Lowering the bow, Marcus exhaled. I believe that satisfies the definition of functional. Cadet Yix's mandibles were still. His chest plates hardly rose. How? was all he managed to utter. Marcus shrugged lightly. Basic physics, a bit of materials science, and a childhood in rural Montana, where options for entertainment were limited. You practiced archery as a child? Asked Cadet Fenn. Among other things. My grandfather believed in what he called practical education. By 12, I could make a bow, dress a deer, light a fire without matches, and navigate by the stars. Marcus smiled, an expression that still made several cadets recoil instinctively. He also taught me a simple rule: never bet against a human when improvised weapons are involved. Commander Vex 90 finally broke the stunned silence. That was highly impressive, Human Kane. Thank you, sir. Shall I clean this up, or would you prefer to keep the weapon for study? Keep it, Vex 90 said quickly. For now. Class ended shortly thereafter, but the cadets lingered, whispering, their eyes flicking between Marcus and the crude yet devastating bow. Already, the Academy's networks were buzzing, rumors spreading about the human who could turn classroom furniture into a battlefield weapon in less than 10 minutes. As Marcus gathered the remnants of his project, Cadet Yix edged forward, mandibles twitching nervously. Regarding our wager, he began, the officers' club tab. Marcus waved it away. Don't worry about it. I was mostly joking. You were joking? Yix asked cautiously. Mostly. The demonstration was real enough, but I've no interest in bankrupting my classmates. Consider the bet void. Relief flooded across Yix's features. That is very generous. Think nothing of it. Marcus's grin sharpened again, sending another ripple of unease through those still present. Besides, I suspect I'll have plenty of other chances to demonstrate. When the last cadets filed out, only Vex 90, Krill, and Professor Quinn remained. The commander's tone was heavy with something bordering on awe. In 3 decades of service, I've never seen anything like that. The technical execution was extraordinary, Quinn agreed. But what unsettles me is his composure. He treated the challenge as trivial, as though it were nothing more than a routine task. Krill was crouched by the training dummy, studying the damage. Sir, these arrows didn't just pierce the armor. The impact force is comparable to military-grade projectiles. He looked up slowly. He achieved that with classroom furniture. Furniture, Vex 90 echoed, as if repetition might make it less absurd. Perhaps we need to re-evaluate what humans are capable of. Sir, Krill ventured, should I include recommendations for countermeasures in my report? For a long moment the question lingered, heavy in the air. No, Vex 90 said at last. We'd be wiser to learn from this, not attempt to defend against it. The officers departed together, deep in thought. None of them noticed the small pile of polymer shavings and bent metal fragments Marcus had left behind on the floor, silent reminders of how easily something ordinary could become a weapon in human hands. To an untrained eye, the scraps left scattered across the training chamber floor might have seemed like nothing more than debris from a class exercise. But a closer look told another story. The cuts were too clean. The fragments too carefully chosen. Marcus Kane had not merely scavenged whatever was at hand. He had selected components with deliberate precision, guided by an understanding of their structural properties and hidden potential. Which begged an unsettling question. What else had he noticed during his initial circuit of the room? And more troubling still, what had he chosen not to use? Within the hour, the custodial staff would sweep it all away, oblivious to the significance of what they were destroying. But in the Academy's archives, every moment of the demonstration was preserved in crystal clarity, captured from a dozen angles. Those recordings would be dissected, catalogued, and ultimately sealed under the highest levels of military classification. Because sooner or later, someone in the upper echelons of Galactic Command would ask the same question that was already gnawing at Commander Vex 90. If a human could conjure a weapon from classroom furniture in 10 minutes, what might they achieve with real weapons, and unlimited time? The answer would prove far darker than anyone present could imagine. 3 days later, Marcus Kane stood in a chamber far larger than the classroom, its ceiling lost in shadow, its walls lined with banners of the Federation fleet. Before him sat a tribunal of senior officers, veterans whose combined service stretched across centuries. On the evidence table between them lay the bow, his creation, looking disarmingly simple under the glare of the interrogation lamps. "Cadet Kane," Admiral Torques Prime began, his voice deep and immovable, the kind of tone that had silenced fleets. "We have reviewed the recordings of your recent exercise. In exhaustive detail." "I assumed you would, sir," Marcus said evenly. The Admiral's secondary eyes studied him while the primary pair flicked over a datapad. "Tell me, Cadet, how long would it take you to teach this skill to others?" Marcus tilted his head. "Hypothetically speaking, sir? Other humans." The Admiral's gaze sharpened. Marcus smiled, that same expression that unsettled nearly every alien who witnessed it. 15 minutes to explain the principles. An hour for hands-on work. A weekend to reach proficiency. The silence that followed was so heavy Marcus could hear the low hum of the atmospheric recyclers in the walls. General Kex Ninth, his scarred body reinforced with gleaming cybernetics, leaned forward. "You claim the average human could replicate this feat with minimal training?" "Not every human," Marcus replied. "But most, yes. We have a saying back home, necessity is the mother of invention. When you grow up on a world where nearly everything tries to kill you, improvisation isn't a skill, it's survival." Colonel Verbata's translator crackled as her tentacles twisted in alarm. "Everything? Your world is hostile." "Not everything," Marcus said with a shrug. "Just the climate, the animals, the plants, geological events, and occasionally, other humans. Pretty normal, really." Verbata recoiled visibly. "Normal? For Earth, yes, ma'am." Admiral Torques Prime lowered his datapad with deliberate precision. "Cadet, understand this. In 3 millennia of recorded galactic history, no species has ever demonstrated the capacity to fashion functional weapons from random material in such little time." Marcus tapped his chin thoughtfully. "That might explain something." "Such as?" "Why your furniture is built so sturdily. Back home, most human furniture is designed to resist being weaponized. We learned that lesson the hard way." The officers exchanged glances, the kind of looks Marcus had learned meant quiet alarm. "There have been incidents?" General Kex Ninth pressed. "Plenty," Marcus admitted. "Prison riots, schoolyard fights, barroom brawls, zombie apocalypse drills. You name it, someone has turned a table leg or chair frame into a weapon." "Wait, do you not have zombies here?" The tribunal blinked. "Zombies are not relevant to this discussion," Admiral Torques Prime cut in, voice like steel. "What matters is the scale of human adaptability." Marcus opened his mouth to reply, but before he could, the chamber's comm system crackled with urgency. "Admiral Torques Prime to Command Center immediately. Code 7 situation." Every alien officer stiffened. The color drained from Colonel Verbata's skin. "Code 7? Marcus asked. "Hostile boarding action," General Kex Ninth growled. "Pirates." The Admiral was already on his feet. "All cadets are to be escorted to secure bunkers at once. That includes you, Kane." Marcus picked up the bow from the table. "Actually, sir, I think I could be useful elsewhere." The Admiral wheeled on him. "Absolutely not. You are a cadet, not a soldier." "With respect, sir," Marcus replied calmly, "I'm a human cadet. And there's a difference." Before anyone could intervene, he was already striding toward the tactical holo-display that had descended from the ceiling. The hologram showed the station's schematics, red markers pulsing at breach points along the outer ring. "Interesting," Marcus murmured, studying the map. "They're targeting maintenance sectors and supply corridors. They want to cut power and life support while avoiding fortified positions." Colonel Verbata snapped, "And how would you know that?" Marcus's eyes stayed on the display. "Basic tactical assessment. The principles are the same, Marcus said calmly, eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Whether you're raiding an enemy camp or robbing a convenience store." He turned to Admiral Torques Prime. "Sir, your security units are spread thin, reacting to multiple incursions. But look at the pattern." He pointed to several red breach indicators glowing across the holographic map. "They're drawing your forces outward." Classic pincer maneuver. Their true objective is either the command center or the armory. General Keck's 9th immediately keyed his comms. "Security teams, be advised, potential feint detected. Maintain coverage on primary objectives." A crackling response came back within seconds. Confirmed contact. 30 pirates spotted in the lower maintenance deck. Heavily armed. Using advanced breaching tools. Admiral Torques Prime's face shifted through a cascade of colors. 30? With military-grade equipment? How in the void did they breach our perimeter? Marcus's gaze never left the display. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" "Granted. Your perimeter defenses are built to repel large warships using conventional weapons. These pirates didn't come that way. They likely used small craft. Maybe even single insertion pods. Too small, too fast for your heavy batteries to track." General Keck's 9th grimaced. "Disturbingly accurate." "It's exactly what we would do in their position," Marcus added without hesitation. The word hung in the air. "We?" Admiral Torques Prime asked carefully. "Humans, sir. Asymmetric warfare doctrine. When you face overwhelming firepower, you don't challenge it, you sidestep it. Exploit the blind spots. Attack the weaknesses static defenses can't cover." The chamber went silent. Another urgent burst came across the comms. "Admiral, security reports escalating resistance. Pirates entrenched in fortified positions. They're using captured Academy equipment against us." Marcus exhaled sharply and started for the door. "Well, that settles it. Where are you going?" Admiral Torques Prime demanded. "To help," Marcus replied. "Your security forces are trained for conventional assault. These pirates aren't conventional. You are not authorized for combat," the Admiral snapped. Marcus paused at the threshold, bow slung across his back. He glanced over his shoulder, expression grave. "With respect, sir, I'm a human. I've been authorized for combat since I learned how to walk." Before anyone could object, he was gone. Admiral Torques Prime stared at the empty doorway for several seconds, mandibles rigid with disbelief. Did he just disobey a direct order and run toward active combat? General Keck's 9th inclined his head grimly. "Yes, sir." "Shall I divert a team to bring him back?" Colonel Verbata asked, scanning her display. "We can't," she answered herself moments later. "Every available squad is engaged. There's no one left to spare." Torques Prime drew a slow, deliberate breath and made a decision that would later be studied in strategy lectures across the galaxy. "Then we track him, and pray he knows what he's doing." Marcus moved through the Academy's corridors with the confidence of someone who had studied the layout in meticulous detail. His bow was strapped across his shoulders, and at some point he had acquired a small toolkit from a maintenance junction. The first pirates he encountered were 3 Korvaxi mercenaries attempting to cut through a bulkhead with plasma torches. They never saw him coming. The first arrow dropped the one handling the torch before the weapon hit the floor. The second shaft buried itself in the chest of his partner before the first body collapsed. The third pirate spun, eyes wide, just in time to see Marcus already drawing a bead. "Surrender," Marcus suggested, his voice casual, almost conversational. The surviving Korvaxi froze, then wisely dropped his weapon. "Excellent choice," Marcus said mildly, keeping his arrow trained on the pirate's center mass. "Now, we're going to have a little chat." 5 minutes later, Marcus slipped deeper into the station with far more information than before. The captured mercenary had proven remarkably cooperative once Marcus explained, calmly and in detail, the consequences of unhelpfulness. The revelations were troubling. The raiders weren't random brigands. They were after the Academy's classified weapons research, specifically defensive technology prototype. They knew the Academy's shift schedules, its security protocols. They'd been armed and briefed by someone with high-level knowledge of Federation military procedure. As Marcus approached the central hub, he found chaos. A squad of Academy officers was pinned behind overturned tables, trapped under brutal crossfire from two entrenched pirate positions. The firefight was slipping rapidly out of control. Marcus crouched beside them, studying the situation for 30 silent seconds before prying open a nearby environmental control panel. "What in the void are you doing?" Lieutenant Krill hissed, crouched nearby with his blaster. "Improving our odds," Marcus said evenly, fingers working at a blur as he rerouted power in ways that would have horrified any safety inspector. Moments later, the corridor's atmosphere control engaged with a roar. Jets vented carefully channeled gusts of air, creating violent crosscurrents. The gale distorted the trajectory of the pirates' energy bolts, forcing them wide. Marcus, however, drew back his bowstring and loosed with precision. His arrows cut through the manufactured wind like it wasn't even there. "Brilliant," one of the officers gasped. "Elementary," Marcus corrected. He let fly another arrow, which ricocheted around 3 separate surfaces before sinking neatly into a pirate's flank. He rose smoothly. "Now, gentlemen, advance. I believe we can conclude this encounter quickly." What followed would later appear in the official reports under the carefully worded phrase, "Tactics unconventional, but effective." Marcus moved through the chaos as though he had been born to it, bow in hand, arrows flying with unerring precision. He sabotaged pirate equipment as easily as breathing, rerouted systems against their operators, and bent the station's very environment into a weapon. Within 20 minutes, the incursion was finished. When Admiral Torques Prime finally arrived at the scene, he found Marcus calmly cataloging captured gear while the Academy's security officers watched with a mixture of respect and quiet dread. "Cadet Kane," the Admiral said slowly, as though testing the weight of each word. "I believe we need another conversation." "Yes, sir," Marcus replied evenly. "But before that, you may want to review your communications security." These pirates had operational details only available through high-level access. Torques Prime felt an unfamiliar pressure behind his primary eyes, a sensation humans might call a migraine. "You suspect an inside operative?" Marcus's answer was immediate. "I know there is one. The surviving pirate was very cooperative, once properly motivated." The Admiral's gaze shifted. "And this survivor?" Marcus gestured toward a lone Korvaxi mercenary seated in the corner, weapons discarded, posture slumped. The alien looked less like a hardened raider and more like a being re-evaluating every decision that had led him to this point. "He's reconsidering his career path," Marcus said. That evening, Marcus once again stood before the tribunal of senior officers. The mood was different now, charged, unsettled. "Cadet Kane," Admiral Torques Prime began, his voice heavy with thought. "Your actions today were," he paused, searching for the word, "unprecedented." "Thank you, sir. That was not necessarily praise." Marcus inclined his head. "Understood, sir." General Kex Ninth leaned forward. "What we do not understand is how you achieved what an entire trained security force could not." Marcus considered before replying. "With respect, sir, it comes down to perspective. Your security forces operate according to established doctrine. They're exceptional within those parameters. But I wasn't following doctrine. And you? I was doing what I was trained to do, General. Survive. There's a difference." Colonel Verbata activated a holographic replay of Marcus's movements during the skirmish. "These tactical choices, they don't align with any doctrine we recognize." "That's because they aren't doctrine, ma'am. They're practical problem-solving, applied under combat conditions." "Practical problem-solving," Admiral Torques Prime echoed slowly. "Yes, sir. You identify the problem. You evaluate available resources. You craft a solution. The fact that the problem involved armed pirates is almost incidental. The officers exchanged weighted glances. Cadet Kane, the Admiral said finally, I am recommending you for immediate advancement to officer training. Your perspective may prove invaluable to galactic defense. Marcus allowed himself a smile. Thank you, sir. I accept. There is one condition, General Kex Ninth interjected. You will develop training protocols for other humans entering service. Of course, sir, Marcus said. Then, with that same unnerving frankness, he added, though I should mention, most humans would consider today's events fairly routine. The silence that followed was long and heavy. Routine. Admiral Torx Prime repeated. Yes, sir. Standard pirate raid. Limited casualties. Minimal damage. Almost textbook. Colonel Verbata's tentacles writhed in visible distress. This was textbook? For humans, yes, ma'am. Though usually, Marcus added, we have better tools at our disposal. The Admiral scribbled something onto his datapad. Then we are going to need a much larger budget for the human integration program. As the briefing concluded and the officers filed out, Marcus lingered to collect his bow. It had performed admirably, but his mind was already considering refinements, what improvements might be made with proper materials. Admiral Torx Prime lingered as well. Cadet Kane. Marcus. I need an honest answer. Of course, sir. How many humans are there on Earth? Marcus thought for a moment. Roughly 12 billion, sir. Torx Prime was silent for a very long time. Sir? Is something wrong? No, Cadet, the Admiral said, though his voice was tight. Everything is fine. I simply need to make some very important calls. Marcus gave a small nod, then left the chamber with a faint smile. The galaxy was proving far more interesting than he had ever imagined, and he looked forward to the challenges yet to come. Behind him, Admiral Torx Prime was already composing a priority message to Galactic Command Headquarters. Its subject line read, Request immediate policy review regarding human military integration. The message itself was far longer, and contained recommendations destined to alter the course of interstellar history. But that, as they say, was another story. And so ends the first chapter of Marcus Kane's journey, one human cadet whose improvisation reshaped how the galaxy viewed his species. If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing to the channel for more journeys into strange new world. Don't forget to like, share, and comment below with your thoughts on Marcus's trial, humanity's adaptability, and the kind of sci-fi worlds you'd like to explore next. The galaxy is vast, and our story has only just begun.